Good evening and welcome to ANN7 Prime. My name is Cindy Mabi. As always, wonderful having you. You're welcome to join the discussion on Twitter, that's at ANN7TV, or you can stream live at that's www.ann7.com/live. For now though, here are the news headlines. ANC and DA councillors at loggerheads after the Tshwane council chaos. Assault and intimidation charge laid against an ANC councillor after violence at the council meeting on Tuesday. Stage set for the referendum at Wits University. Results of the students and staff poll to be verified by one of the top 5 auditing companies in South Africa. This as Wits students seek an urgent interdict against the poll. 11 students are arrested at the Rhodes University, this after they clashed with police over the fees must fall. Shareholders of brewing giant AB InBev approved the blockbuster takeover of rival SAB Miller. The merger creates the biggest beer company in the world. MEC for Cooperation and Governance, Paul Mashatile, has condemned the violent disruptions of the Tshwane Council yesterday. Mashatile said the behavior is an affront to the recent successful local government elections. He met the newly elected DA Mayor Solim Simanga. ANC councillors disrupted proceedings on Tuesday when they questioned the legitimacy of a DA member's appointment. They also accused Simanga of corruption and catered deployment. Meanwhile, charges of assault and intimidation have been laid against the ANC councillor. A female councillor is still receiving treatment in hospital following the violence.
I would just like to lay down the undeniable fact that the ANC has been attempting to frustrate the administration of the DA from day one. They've not just, we're not just saying this because we see it, but they've pronounced this very publicly. We are now having this meeting, a multi-party meeting today, to try and for the parties to find each other. Because in essence, we can have the political grandstanding, we are politicians. It's a very robust environment. But at the same time, we've been placed there by the citizens to perform a duty, to perform a role. And anything that distracts from that in and of itself is tantamount to stealing from the citizens of Tshwane.
There would have been a problem with the manner in which how the speaker was running the council, and that's why actually it resulted in many delays because of many of the rulings that she was making that were irregular, that were not actually in compliance with the adopted rules of council. If ever there is a misconduct according to the adopted rules of council, if there is a misconduct that relates to a particular councillor, then that particular councillor must be referred to the Rules and Ethics Committee. It then becomes the prerogative of the Rules and Ethics Committee to rule on whether the alleged misconduct by the councillor.
Co-operative governance condemned the events at the Tshwane Council, calling it a sad moment for South Africa's democracy.
Our municipal councils are guided by rules, and these rules, of course, don't allow at any stage acts of violence or disruptive behavior by public representatives. And we think this is something that should be condemned because it's not auguring well. For the decorum, but also the status of a municipal council of Tshwane status or any other municipal council. So it's something that we should condemn, and I'm waiting for the report from the relevant MEC in Gauteng province that will indicate the steps that will be taken by the leadership of Tshwane municipality, of course, under the monitoring of the provincial government.
Yeah, it's a very sad moment in our democracy that we had to see a situation where councillors will be throwing objects at each other. Council chambers is a forum of debate where you persuade each other on views, you express your own party's views to win society whilst it's watching it. And what has been demonstrated is a shame. And I think people will then just say, what is wrong with these councillors if they are doing this? No matter what the merits are, no matter how angry you are, we have condemned what is happening in Parliament. will definitely continue to say we condemn what happened in the council. And councils is chambers for debate, to persuade society and to give messages to our people, not what we saw yesterday.
We will work with the Metro Police and the South African Police Service to ensure that the precinct is properly secured. But we've also agreed that where there may be difficulties of a councillor or councillors refusing to leave the chamber, the Speaker is going to re-look again at that aspect as to what to do when that happens, because we know we have a Constitutional Court ruling on that matter about the use of police. And we took example, for instance, with Parliament, you've got a sergeant at arms, etc. The Council will look at those issues. The chamber is there for debates. We can argue, we can agree to disagree, but we can't allow the use of violence or intimidation in the chamber. All political parties agree that there is no support for that kind of behavior.
So we're asking if we are treading rather on stormy waters when it comes to coalition governments, particularly what happened in Tshwane with the Gauteng MEC for Traditional Affairs and Cooperative Governance, calling it an embarrassing moment. You're welcome to join the debate on 011-542-2186 or tweet at ANN7 TV. And joining us in studios, Joe Mbisi, Gauteng Provincial Chairperson for the SACP, and Advocate Zahir Omar, constitutional law expert. Welcome. Sfiso Mahlangu is a political analyst, and last but not least, Saki Deploy. He is from the Freedom Plus Councillor in Tshwane. Gentlemen, thanks so much for your time. Saki, can we just get into the nitty-gritties of what happened in the closed-door meeting in the Tshwane chambers today?
Are you referring to today or
Correct,
the meeting of the council meeting of yesterday?
Today.
Today. Mr. Mashatile, the MEC for cooperative governance, called us all together. He arrived there after we had some discussions and some feedback with some of the officials from the province, from the provincial department, from the COCTA. And also present were leaders from all the different parties of the multi-party coalition, as well as from the ANC and the EFF. And they just came to do a fact-finding. They wanted to know what exactly happened the day before in council yesterday. And they were also present our acting city manager, as well as the chief of police of the Metro Police. So the purpose of that first meeting was to give some feedback. And all of us had the opportunity to give our views on what we experienced the night before or the day before. And then Mr. Mashatile and the mayor, Mr. Solim Simanga, came in and he addressed us. And he conveyed his general wishes for this Metro Council to be a success, being the city. Yeah. The city that we would like to
But I mean, it seems that we've never seen, it's unprecedented engagements, particularly at a municipal level. Perhaps in Parliament you'd expect these kind of dramatic theatrics, if you will. But as we saw, this doesn't look very good for the ANC, who finds themselves in the opposition for the first time in Tshwane.
It doesn't look good for international relations. It doesn't look good for cooperative governance. It doesn't look good for investor relations. It doesn't look good for city marketing. It doesn't look good for the DA for the first time in 22 years that another party besides the ANC is in running. It doesn't look good for Mr. Msimang. He hasn't even had his 100 days in office, and this breaks down. But this is what you expect at a municipal level when you have such outbreaks in Parliament. So I think Parliament has led an example. And maybe the red wave has led that example, and perhaps people are seated happy now because that's what they want. The Parliament was never a place to hold robust engagement that force people out of the assembly. It's never a place to break. You should disagree and have maybe some robust debate, and that's it. But from what happens in Parliament these days, particularly in this country, even at the State of the Nation address, has led even our councils to think that such behavior is allowed and such behavior is legal.
Yeah,
and the destruction of property, which should never be allowed. Yeah. And this is what is happening.
And
who's going to pay for this?
Yeah, we condemn it in the highest form, as we've seen with the other political leaders. But in the sense where the protesting councillors in Tshwane were prevented from entering the chamber in the first place, that in itself being taken as a provocation, we still cannot condone the nature of the violence that we saw yesterday, Mr. Omar.
Look, I must, with respect, disagree with my colleague, Mr. Sefiso. Look, embarrassing to our country, and then I hear comments about being a sad day of our democracy, and I hold a contrary view. What has happened at Tshwane is a sign of a democracy that's maturing. We have a vibrant, robust democracy. We did not have a revolution upon the coalition of the two big metros, Johannesburg and Tshwane. Cape, the Western Cape, for years has now been controlled by the DA. The ANC has expressed tolerance, has lived out the wishes of former President Mandela, and continues to do so. What provoked or what incited the violence at the Tshwane municipal chambers yesterday? The answer is simple. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. Solly Msimanga approved an emergency appointment of Gert Pretorius as chair of chairs. Now you tell me the average black South African gets up tomorrow morning to learn that Anton Rupert is the new president of the country. That will incite us to violence. Now Solly Msimanga ought to have been taught by the DA that when you appoint, you do have a coalition, you have a majority. I appreciate that. I choose the office manager in my office, but I must consult. Solly Msimanga ought to have consulted with everyone before allowing the announcement of these councillors being done for the first time. That provoked incitement. What I think, with respect, and many of the Society for the Protection of Our Constitution believe, after the investigation, Solly Msimanga is being set up to fail in Tshwane.
We'll get a response from the DA. I just quickly want to get a reaction from the SACP in the sense of how relations are working now with the coalition government. Is the legislature in itself in a state of paralysis?
It is. It is. I mean, we expected that. If you have a two organization with different ideologies, definitely we will have such crisis. In fact, it's three or more of them, different ideologies. Obviously, you'll have that problem. And it is unfortunate that the EFF in this case has been used by the DA and the Freedom Front Plus to advance this arrogancy that they are the better leaders who can lead the municipality. Unfortunately, they are the ones who started this whole mess. But I must say that we must condemn what has happened yesterday. We don't expect that. But members of council were provoked, and that has led to that crisis. And we can't stop people who are afraid. It was good when we were taken as the leader then in the council as the ANC-led alliance. But now that the DA and the EFF and Freedom Front Plus are together, when the ANC is being robust about things, they feel afraid. And we have done that in the Western Cape. You can see our comrades are robust and they respect the decorum of council as well.
All right, Joe Motheo Mtimkulu is a DA Deputy Chief Whip in Tshwane and joins us. Thanks so much, Motheo, for your time. Just your response in the sense, Mr. Omar saying that Solly Msimanga is being set up to fail, essentially by the DA, because they would like to see a different complexion in the leadership there. What's your response?
Hi, Cindy. Thank you for having me on. I would just like to caution Mr. Omar on commenting on areas of politics within the Democratic Alliance that he clearly has no view upon or any privilege to know about. Solly Msimanga was nominated as a candidate for the mayoral candidacy of Tshwane. He was highly supported by the Democratic Alliance. We led him through to victory, and he's currently a very successful mayor in the city of Tshwane. The concern about him having irregularly appointed in an emergency fashion Gerhard Pretorius' position as chair of chairs is manifestly false and devoid of truth. The issue arose because of the appointment of a temporary chief of staff, of which the staffing policy as well as the Municipal Services Act allow for, as well as the temporary appointment of the Secretary to Council. The issue of the Chair of Chairs was simply a secondary issue that kicked off yesterday. But another issue that I would like to raise, Cindy, is that the reason that the issue kicked off, to start off with, the basis of the crux of the matter, so to speak, was the fact that the ANC cannot accept the fact that they're now in opposition in the city of Tshwane. It is difficult for the ANC to see the DA in the governing party seats side of the House, being able to outvote them on certain motions, and that in and of itself was the cause. The ANC does not see the DA government in Tshwane as being legitimate. They have stated very publicly that it is in their greatest aim to make the Tshwane ungovernable, and all of this is now a manifestation of those earlier renunciations during the campaign.
So Matthieu, do you think that hung councils are a recipe for disaster, as you were saying, that there isn't any cohesive approach to a lot of things, particularly with the ANC now being in opposition?
Yeah, Cindy, just firstly, just to correct you, the name is Moteo.
Oh, okay. I beg your pardon.
No, it's not a problem whatsoever. But moving on to your question, the issue of a hung council only happens when it is when there is no administration in a city. We currently have an administration. It's a DA-run multi-party administration under the guidance and stewardship of Executive Mayor Msimanga. So the issue of a hung council is a semantic ploy by the ANC to once again to try and delegitimize the rightful a DA coalition government in the city of Tshwane.
All right, Matteo, let's get our panelists to react. Joe, you disagree?
I disagree with the chief whip of the DA. You see, ANC, it's a democratic organization, and ANC has accepted the outcomes of the local government elections. So it can't be correct that the ANC, just because they are afraid to engage the African National Congress in the city of Tshwane, that does not mean that the ANC has caused chaos. It's them who are creating chaos. You'll remember, for example, just to cite one example, when the stands were taken by people in Nelmapias, they blamed the ANC, and the people who were doing that is their partner, the EFF, who were actually stealing the land in the Nelmapias. So this thing of that the ANC is not accepting the election and wants to make Tshwane ungovernable, it is not true. The ANC will continue to respect the democratic process. We are going to bounce back. They know themselves. They are there the sympathy of the EFF and Freedom Front Plus and others. They know that they can't sustain that thing. That thing is going to collapse, and we know that it is going to collapse. How do you then bypass the rules of council by appointing people in the wrong way? That is what sparks the problem in that area.
Okay, so what evidence is there, Mr. Omar, that the DA flouted any processes in the legislature? Or perhaps, Asisaki, you can also respond to that.
Look, the ANC is accused of wanting to make Tshwane ungovernable. This is the accusation made. Section 106 of the Municipal Systems Act allows the MEC for corporate governance, Paul Mashatile, to immediately appoint an administrator. The ANC has not done so. On the contrary, Paul Mashatile, during an interview, has said it is too soon. He's indulging in investigations. So the accusation against the ANC is false, firstly. Secondly, consultation is an adjunct of Ubuntu. No matter what the Act says I can appoint a councillor. But Ubuntu dictates what you do is you talk to the people who are going to interact with the councillor. You don't simply announce it. And as far as the personal attack upon me is concerned, I'm very familiar with the DA constitution. I'm doing a arbitration in Bloemfontein concerning a DA councillor, an African woman who has been unlawfully dealt with. So I'm very, very fully familiar with the DA and its workings.
All right, without prejudicing any of your cases, but Saki, I just want to get back to the Gerhard Pretorius appointment and whether the DA flouted any rules or processes within the legislature. according to you?
I don't know exactly what happened with that appointment. I wasn't part of the appointment. All I know, there's a big difference between robust politics or robust discussions in a meeting and irresponsible behavior. It was, I think this whole issue of the chair of chairs, Mr. Pretorius, was just used to disrupt the meeting. And I think, and there were various ways of trying to disrupt this meeting by the ANC. It was obvious right from the beginning. They've got a few issues, they've got a few, let's say, weapons or means in the bag that they were about to use. The one was a crowd. Right at the beginning of the meeting, when there was a crowd at the gate, at the entrance, which harassed the people. That's why there were 2 councillors who laid charges against them, 2 women that were abused. This same crowd, I believe, entered not the hall
Are these
itself.
protesting councillors, or were they
No, not councillors, a crowd.
Yeah, of people.
People who were actually actively supporting the ANC. When the ANC was talking, they were cheering, and when the others were talking, they were booing. So they were there, and not in the chamber, but they were in the gallery, and they were a disturbance all the time. So there were many circumstances set up to make this meeting not to happen. The speaker was abused time and again. And this is not about robust discussion, of whatever matter. It was irresponsible, and Mr. Mashatile told us this afternoon, we have to allow debate, but we should not allow insults. And the insults were coming fast and furious. And it was impossible to continue with the meeting with all the insults coming, especially from the speakers of the ANC, where they were also using time and again the possibility of coming up with a point of order, a point of information. Really, they were bent on
Okay,
making
Saki,
this
I just quickly
not
have to take
happen.
callers. Sorry to interrupt you. Frank in Tembisa, Bongan in Vosloorus, we see you. Hello, Frank.
Good day, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? What's your question or comment?
I'm thanks. Yeah, my question is that I want to ask that man, an Indian guy, Omar.
Yeah?
Omar has been biased. He's been biased. Always an ANC member. He's an agent of the ANC because always he criticizes other political parties. So my stand is that you must remove that man from that interview of yours because always he's been biased. He's been on the side of the ANC.
Yeah, can we allow people to live and let live? It's a democracy, Frank. Why must people be removed? We've just started this debate. Can we? Anyway, but thanks for your call. Bongan and Vosloorus, hello.
Hello, ma'am. Actually, my concern is that we are seeing the trend now in this kind of robust action. Does that mean a robust, we need to engage in violence or what? Because it's concerning, it's a trend. And one thing that I want to highlight as well, you look at even the behavior around the protest, there's a lot of violence. What is happening in our country? Thank you.
All right, I'll just, if you will, Sfiso.
My query is this, and this is where I want to totally agree with Mr. Omar. And every time we sit together and he has to agree with me, he says with respect. And maybe disrespectfully at this point, we need to say as South Africans, where do we draw the line and say, this is debate, this is violation of another person's constitutional rights, this is vandalism, this is untidy, and this is violence? When does it become illegal? Who's going to pay for all those things that people are breaking? Yeah. And this translates into schools where people say, well, I'm protesting, so therefore we can burn schools and we can burn buses, and we can torch whatever we want because we're in disagreement with whatever's happening. I think people must have the ability, whether it is a robust debate or not, to say, let us have a nuanced conversation. Let us sit respectfully. And whether we disagree or not, let us sit, because these two gentlemen are seated here, the one is from Freedom Front and the other is from the SACP, but the chairs are not flying. Now, why can we not as South Africans do that and approach all our meetings in the same attitude and not say, because it's robust, you know,
let's just get
throats
Muteo.
fly.
Yeah, sorry, Muteo, if you just
that.
respond to that in terms of security protocol, where a crowd is allowed to gather at, and accost other members, I mean, how far extensive or adequate is the security in the Tshwane legislature?
You know, Cindy, what is very telling is that when people talk about robust debates, they mention the fact of that it should not degenerate into violence. And the only time that robust debate does degenerate into violence is when a certain party is involved, and that is the ANC. You'll remember before the election, there was the mass uprisings, the riots, if you will, that happened in Tshwane.